Um, okay, so welcome to the Plant Talk series. Just a little bit of history. It's kind of nice. Dr. Suzanne Copter started this long ago, I think in the early 90s. She didn't give me a precise year, but she's been organizing this for those several decades and keeping it going. And Javier took on the role of continuing it this semester, and I've been helping a little bit, but Javier's done most of the work really. So give him credit for that. And Candace helped out a lot with everything as well, including the website. So it's a wonderful thing we got going here. We got such a rich history of botany at FIU, which I'm very thankful for as a botanist myself. So welcome all. I'll hand it over to John Koza and he'll introduce our speaker today, Amelia.
Okay, so this is my huge pleasure. I mean, one of the joys of teaching at a college is to see someone progress from those first, tentative days as a first year student. And I had Amelia in Gen Bio 1 and 2 in that vast sea of spaces in that room that now we miss so much. Yet she came to see me in office hours, and I found her from that time to be passionate and committed to making the world a better place. And we had a lot of talks about sustainability and plants and conservation. And sure enough, that initial judgment proved true. Amelia became a star, a straight A average, numerous research internships. One time when we were talking, I just kind of casually dropped the idea, FIU should have an arboretum. And Amelia picked up the ball, ran with it, and the result is this amazing creation that she's going to tell you about today. And by the way, Amelia is a graduate now. She graduated in 2019, and she's still working on the student founded and student planned FIU Arboretum. So I'm very, very proud and happy to introduce Amelia Leon to you.
So hi everyone, I'm gonna share my screen so you can see everything that I'll be talking about. Let me know if you can see everything, okay? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. So just to let y'all know, I will be joining FIU again next semester because I will be a graduate student at the Masters of Public Health. So I will be a student again at FIU. So hello everyone, my name's Amelia, as John and Alan introduced, and today I'll be talking to you about the FIU Arboretum Proposal. So here you can see a picture of the front of Academic Health Center 5. As you can see, it's very barren. Although now it is full of palms, we just have to change this picture to include the palms that are now there and present. But the point in showing you this picture is to show you how plain and barren a lot of these spaces on campus look. They're full of grass, not many trees, and that can be changed by an addition of an arboretum. So if you look in the next slide, this is how it could potentially look with the addition of trees, a pathway, a bench where students could sit, a table where students could study. It would look so much nicer, so much beautiful, much more lively if we were to introduce exhibits like this around campus, which is what we intend to do with this project. So there are actually a lot of universities that already have arboretums. One of them is the University of Miami, which has the Gifford Arboretum. There's also the Arboretum of the University of Central Florida and the Florida Atlantic University's Arboretum, Robert Huckshorn Arboretum. So all these arboretums have spaces where students can kind of gather and just sit, relax, study. For example, the Gifford Arboretum has a bench where I often, because I visit it very often, I see students just sitting there, having lunch, studying. There's also a bridge in the Arboretum of University of Central Florida where students can gather and just look upon the Arboretum, and the Robert Huckstrom Arboretum has a gazebo. So gazebos are nice because it provides shade and you can just relax there and talk with a couple friends. So there are campuses in Florida that already have arboretums. So why not have an arboretum for FIU? Sorry about that. So FAU actually has their progression outlined and displayed on their website. And I actually got bits and pieces of it, and I show it to you today. So in their first year, their campus was very barren, as you can see there. It looks very similar to what AHC5, the center AHC5 looks like. And after 5 years, they started introducing more trees and exhibits. And then by the 10th year, you can see that the tree canopy has vastly increased, and we see a lot of growth in trees and exhibits there. So some of the intents of the Arboretum are outlined here, but before I go into it, I would like to mention that FIU already does have green spaces on campus, like the FIU Nature Preserve, the Organic Garden, and the FIU Palmetum. So the purpose to having an Arboretum is to align with the FIU 2025 strategic goals, to elevate FIU's prestige and reputation, to create living labs and experiential learning, to provide a space where students can do research projects, volunteer work, to demonstrate FIU's international identity, and to provide donor opportunities for FIU. So outlined in this slide is the 2025 strategic goals. So those goals include amplifying learner success and institutional affinity, accelerating preeminence and research and innovation impact, and assuring responsible stewardship. So for the first one, amplify learner success and institutional affinity, it really has to deal with shifting the higher education paradigm to meet the needs of the rapidly changing world of work. And it also includes building affinity, which is basically building ties within the student population so that later on when they become faculty, when they become donors, when they become a part of FIU, they stick with FIU. And so the Arboretum can do this by showcasing trees that cater to our diverse demographic, and also by building more sticky spaces, which are basically spaces that are so unique and so nice that students will want to be there. Students will want to come back, hence increasing institutional affinity. And it will also improve community wellness and mental health, which is extremely important in amplifying learner success. So the next goal has to deal more so with research and impact. So they want to increase the research and innovative solutions for the betterment of our environment, health, and society, which is exactly what the Arboretum could potentially do. So if we had an Arboretum, we could potentially expand research in STEM fields and environmental studies and health fields, because trees are related to these fields. Additionally, it could also increase interdisciplinary studies and research, because these exhibits really have to do with all of what FIU is teaching. And I'll explain to you why this is later on when we get into the exhibits. But it is interdisciplinary, and it will introduce a lot of research opportunities for students. And finally, we have assuring responsible stewardship, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's just talking about our commitment to sustainability for the South Florida community. And the Arboretum will, of course, do that because it will sequester carbon. It'll lower our carbon footprint. It'll increase FIU's tree canopy, and it'll connect everyone to environmental sustainability. So we also have a lot of goals besides obviously the 2025 strategic plan, which is to educate students, to promote ecological diversity, to address the goals of Tree Campus USA, make FIU a greener, more sustainable campus, showcase FIU as worlds ahead, and to increase retention and graduation rates with sticky spaces, as I mentioned before. And there's also a lot of benefits to this as well, like providing shade. We all know that Florida's hot, Miami is very hot, and providing shade is perfect for a very hot campus. It also improve air quality with the commuter campus we have, since we have a lot of cars coming in. Boost mental health. There's been studies that show that greenery actually increases the mental, like the wellness and betterment of health among people. And it'll provide educational opportunities, bring a sense of community, and will beautify campus, which is perfect when we're talking about donor opportunities. So here's FIU's 2015 to 2025 master plan. And actually, as Dr. Frank has showed me in the past and explained to me, there's actually a lot of species already on campus. There's more than 100, I think maybe even more than 200 if I'm not mistaken, but we could potentially already be an arboretum. So for example, there's the baobab in front of the Wertheim Conservatory, the bamboo near DM, and the gumbalimbo in parking lot 9. So we already do have a lot of species on campus. But the goal of the Arboretum specifically is to have exhibits that are more organized and related to the building that they reside next to. So here is kind of the roadmap to what the Arboretum could look like. So each exhibit would literally relate to the building that it resides next to. Like, for example, right next to the academic health centers would be a medicinal exhibit. Right next to the law building would be an ordeal and justice exhibit. And everything would be kind of interconnected in this way. So in front of the ZIF education building, there's a space that could potentially have the education exhibit. And this exhibit would showcase trees that are used for teaching. So here are some examples of trees that we could include. So for example, the rainbow eucalyptus, it's a very colorful tree. It's a beautiful tree, one of my favorite trees. And it could potentially be used to teach kids, about trunks. And it also is just very alluring because of the color. There's also the Jack's beanstalk, which is basically related to the Jack and the Beanstalk story, because those stalks look like the beanstalk that Jack found in the story. There's also the dragon blood tree, which I think would fascinate kids because of, the dragon blood and the fantastical stories associated with dragons, but also it could teach kids about where some of our dyes come from. So there's also the Biomimicry Exhibit, which would be located between PCA and the computer engineering building, now the CASE building. But it will showcase trees that have sparked inspiration for architects and engineers alike. So for example, we have the Queen's Reef, which when the flowers are basically dried up, as you can see, they kind of look like helicopter leaves. Once they dry up, it will literally spin in the wind, kind of like a helicopter. And that's how it disperses its seeds, which I find it really interesting and could have been used as inspiration for a helicopter. There's also the prickly pear, which I've seen studies actually show that they're using it to improve hazmat suits. If you want a more elaborate explanation about that, you can always feel free to email me and let me know. But basically the gist of it is that the prickly pear has a layer of skin that basically adapts to its environment. And that's kind of what they want to do for hazmat. They want to develop smart skin for hazmat suits that whenever there's no dangerous chemicals around, they want to basically have it, basically filter in and out the environment so that people aren't, sweating or can actually have a natural exchange with their environment. But when dangerous chemicals are shown, it'll just, repel everything. So that's what they're doing with prickly pear. And there's also the rubber tree, which they're actually using for basically smart plastic. So everything's smart here. Because they want the plastic to self-repair, kind of like the rubber tree does. Whenever it sustains a hit, it releases capsules of an adhesive that basically repair the tree, which is something that they would like to do with plastic. There's also the medicinal exhibit, which will be located, as I mentioned before, in academic health centers, and will display trees that have been used for their medicinal qualities. So I don't know if you know this, but more than 50% of the most common medications were derived from plants, which is extremely incredible, extremely impressive, and why biodiversity is so important. So some of the examples here are the guanabana tree, the neem tree, and the cinchona tree. I'm sure if you've taken a biology class, you know that the cinchona tree was actually used to treat malaria back in the day. So this is a perfect example of how trees could be related to their discipline and also just serve so much purpose. There's also the research exhibit that will be located near Awaihan, and will exhibit trees that have been used for research, not only at FIU, but abroad. And so we have the ice cream bean tree, for example, which is actually being studied by Dr. Suzanne Copter for the defense mutualism of ants. There's also the Brazil nut tree, which has been studied by Dr. Christopher Baralotto because it is a hyperdominant species in Brazil. And there's also the sandbox tree, which is extremely interesting tree and has been widely studied because it has a very explosive seed dispersal. So there's also the social exhibit, which will be located in front of the Graham Center and will exhibit social spaces that bring people together. So for example, there's the natal mahogany tree that provides a lot of shade and has been used in various ceremonies just to bring shade because shade is very important when, you know, you have an event and it's very hot, like here in Miami. There's also the white frangipani, which also has been used in various ceremonies. For example, in weddings, and they would usually give the flowers to the people there as a sign of respect and a sign of, you know, friendliness. And another thing that the social exhibit could potentially have are hammocks, swings, and other things that students can use to just feel at home and feel more comfortable, more social. So it's kind of like the description that I have made for the social exhibit is kind of like the Graham Center outside, you know? So like Graham Center is a very social space. It's a very, you know, familiar place for students. So it's kind of like bringing Graham Center outside. There's also the fruit and crop exhibit, which will be located near the College of Business complex. And this exhibit will pretty much have trees that have important economic value. So of course, the orange tree, it's pretty self-explanatory. We are the citrus state, so the orange tree would be very valuable to have in this exhibit, as well as the guava tree and the avocado tree, which are trees that are very predominant in Latin America. There's the Rodeo and Justice tree, which is located which will be located next to the law building and will exhibit notable trees that have been used to obtain justice, basically. So as truth serums or just to judge people's innocence or guilt with the berries and fruits that it has. So for example, the Calabar bean tree, well, really all of these trees actually were used in Africa to basically determine whether one was innocent or guilty by giving a piece of the tree to the person being accused. And if they survived it, well, they're innocent. And if not, we knew they were guilty. It just kind of shows how far the justice system has come. And I think it's extremely interesting that trees have been used in justice. So there's also the literature exhibit that will be located next to English Language Institute building and will highlight trees that have been used in prominent literature. For example, the baobab tree, which was used in my favorite childhood book, The Little Prince, the monastery bamboo, which was used in the Bamboo People, and sugarcane, which has been widely used in literature across the Caribbean. There's also the sacred exhibit, which will be located right next to Primera Casa in DM, and will highlight trees used in various ceremonies and religions. So for example, if you're into Santeria, you would know the Ceiba tree. The Rudrashka tree is very important in India, used for prayer beads, and the fig tree. If you're Christian, you would know that it was the leaves that were used to cover Adam and Eve when they realized their own nakedness. There's also the musical exhibit, which will be located right next to the Wertheim Conservatory and Performing Arts Center, and will exhibit trees that sound and look like instruments, and as well as were used to make instruments. So for example, the musical notes plant looks like a musical note, quite literally. Like, it's very cute. I love it. I think it'd be really awesome to have in front of the musical exhibit. There's also the trumpet tree, which literally looks like a trumpet, and the African ebony, which was used to make a wide array of like instruments like guitar, piano, violin. There's the International Relations exhibit, which will be located right next to SIPA. I do have to mention, though, that right behind SIPA will be SIPA 2, so we have to fix that. But the rest of the space will be dedicated to international relations. So we still have space for it, even though SIPA 2 is coming. So this will display trees that have great cultural and historical importance. So for example, the olive tree is a universal symbol of peace. The bloodwood tree was used to found the country of Belize, and Pau Brazil is actually what gave Brazil its name, because Brazil was so full of Pau Brasils that they just decided to name the country Brazil because they had so many of it. So there's, last but not least, the therapeutic exhibit, which will be located between Student Health Center and the Wellness Recreation Center, and will basically include trees and plants that have been used as therapeutic agents. So for example, the eucalyptus tree and the lang tree and the lavender plant is basically a very aromatic experience. And that's kind of what we want for this exhibit. So here is what the therapeutic garden looks like now, or what will be the therapeutic garden looks now, and what it could potentially look like if it did become the therapeutic garden. So as you can see, there's, some lavender trees around it. There would be a pathway which would act as a sort of donor opportunity, as well as a gazebo, water features to kind of enhance the senses, and just people around doing yoga, sitting, relaxing. It's really supposed to be a space for meditation. This is an aerial view of it. This was the first year if we should plant these trees, and the 5th year as well as the 10th year. As you can see, it's just growing. We're adding more features. The plants are growing, and this is potentially what it could look like if we were to introduce an exhibit there. So here's a preliminary therapeutic tree budget, and it basically outlines how much each tree or plant would cost, including the transportation of these trees, and the total would just be a whopping $300. You heard me, $300. It's like one of those commercials like online. And this is just to show you that trees are really not that expensive. And actually, if we go to the next slide, we can see that the additions to this exhibit would actually be more expensive than the trees itself. So for example, a bench would cost $400. I actually know a bench in FIU that costs, I think, around like $1,000, just saying. But depending on what kind of bench you want is like, the price that you pay. As well as the pathway, the gazebo, the water feature, and planter box. But the tree cost would really come from, grants. I know that Tremendous also offered to donate some trees. So the trees would always be there. It's just we want also donor opportunities like benches, like pathways, so that people have the opportunity to give back to FIU and have these places funded. So now that we're talking about funding, let's get into it. So we can fund the Arboretum in many different ways, like having, fundraisers at Chipotle, at a karaoke, even make a GoFundMe. But honestly, that's kind of not the route we want to take. We want to take more of the donors and grants kind of route. So we have potentially a lot of donors that could donate to this project. So for example, there's the FIU student government who's already expressed interest in donating to the Arboretum. There's Tremendous Miami, who has also exhibited interest in donating trees, the Alumni Association and Ignite campaign, as well as other donor opportunities and people in general that could potentially give back, like even teachers. And I'll explain to you later how that works. So there's also grants, which is another really big funding opportunity, because you could get anywhere from $1,000 to $200,000 just in grants. So here are a preliminary list of grants available for the Arboretum, and each one has a different deadline, and it also provides different amounts of funding. So for example, the Museums for America and Inspire Grant for Small Museums, I think provides up to, I would say like $20,000 in grants, whereas the Therapeutic Garden grant would only provide around, I think, $1,000, but everything counts. And I think that once we get accredited as an Arboretum and we start applying to these grants, I think it's really going to make an impact, and I think it will really set us apart from other universities and benefit the student population. So we also have phasing strategies based on feasibility of the exhibit, priority based on the CASE Carbon Footprint Committee, which is committed to lowering FIU's carbon footprint. We also have priority based on visibility, like what will students see more. We also want to align it with landscape improvements or installations, like for example, SIPA 2, since it's coming, we may have to do the international relations exhibit a little bit later. It will also be timed with funded or likely funded new construction and a head start, leapfrog certain areas to encourage future development, like the President's Park Pavilion. So here is kind of a chart demonstrating and comparing FIU to other universities that do have arboretums. So UM's Arboretum was established in 1947 by the Botany Department, and currently it's around 3 acres. The UCF Arboretum was founded in 1983 by President Trevor Colborn and is currently 82 acres. FAU was founded in 2004 and was founded by Vice President Robert Huckshorn, hence the name Robert Huckshorn Arboretum, and is 1 acre. Now, the difference between ours and theirs is that ours is obviously going to be founded more recently, 2019. And actually who would start it is students, which is a huge difference. It's coming from the actual student population, and there's a lot of interest in it, and I think it'll set us apart from others. And we'll also have a whopping 342 acres because, as I mentioned before, this is an arboretum that's literally going to be within our university. Any nook and cranny of our university that we can find to have an exhibit, we're going to put one there, which is why it will be so big. There's also differences in funding. So for example, basically got their funding from Botany Department and nurseries, and they donated plants to the Arboretum. UCF started with $130,000, and that was from the Colleges of Science and a recurring payroll deductions, which is something that FIU could do too, technically, which is basically they take a little bit of any faculty's salary and just put it into the Arboretum should you choose to do that option. FAU started with $10,000 from Robert Huckshorn himself, FPL, faculty donations, and recurring payroll deductions. So what we anticipate to have is $50,000, and that's going to be from grants and from donors, and potentially, if we want to take that route, recurring payroll deductions and faculty donations as well. There's also the maintenance cost of it. So there's differences in the way that each university handles their arboretum. So for example, really needs a lot of watering and weeding. So they hired an arborist and a full-time professor, although I'm not quite sure if they still have that full-time professor. We'll ask John at the end of this, but that's basically what they've been doing up to this point. And the total cost was $32,000 per year, and that's for 3 acres. So UCF needs watering, weeding, trimming, specialized tree maintenance. They are a bigger arboretum, so they need a little bit more. So they hired 4 full-time staff, which is $30K each, and 11 work-study interns, which is $5,000 each. So each year, it's around $500K per year. Mind you, they also have arborists and other extra costs, which is why it costs so much per year. And that's for 82 acres. FAU really just needs trail trimming. So they have a lower maintenance cost. They just hired an arborist and an intern. So their total cost per year is around $9,000. What we would like to have is someone who could water, weed, trim. And right now, the Office of University Sustainability is extremely proficient in handling green spaces on campus. I mean, we've been maintaining a lot of the parking lots in Nature Preserve, the organic garden. So we already have a lot of interns, paid and unpaid, that already help us. So a lot of it would be through them. And we would hire potentially 2 full-time staff, one for MMC, one for BBC, 11 work-study interns, and an arborist, and the rest would probably be volunteer work through the office or even through campus opportunities and whatnot. And what we predict to have is around 120K per year maintenance costs. And that would be for both MMC and BBC campus. So here are some certifications as well. So has an Alliance of Museums certification, an American Public Gardens Association, and Tree Campus USA. UCF is also part of Tree Campus USA, B Campus USA, and American Public Gardens Association. FAU is also part of Tree Campus USA, has an ARBNet Level 1 accredited arboretum, is a National Wildlife Federation, and a North American Butterfly Association certificate. Finally, FIU, what we plan to have is basically the same as the others. We already have Tree Campus USA. We're already part of Tree Campus USA. However, to obtain the other ones, for example, the ARBNet accredited arboretum, we would need to, go through a process, which I'll explain to you a little bit later on. And the Alliance of Museum, which is pending submission of that process, and the American Public Gardens Association, which is also pending submission. So here is the process of the ARBNet, and this is basically what we would like to do in order to become an accredited arboretum. And like I mentioned before, we can already become an accredited arboretum. We just want to, again, make these exhibits a lot more refined and a lot more related to the building that they reside next to. So it would be a lot more intentional than it is now, I feel. So to apply is actually free. There's no cost whatsoever. It takes 2 to 4 weeks to get accredited after you apply. And that accreditation lasts 5 years. So every 5 years, we'd have to renew it. Once accredited, that's when we can apply for those grants that I outlined before. And this is all pending administrative approval. So I still haven't taken this presentation to the president yet. But once he approves that, then I think we can go through this process and continue and move on to the next steps of securing these grants and actually planning these exhibits. So there's different levels of accreditation. There's level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. And we can potentially, right now, as it is right now, apply for a level 2 accreditation. But ultimately, we would like to reach for level 4. But really, each level just depends on how many trees you have, the staff you have, resources you provide in the Arboretum, etc. But I think we could potentially one day achieve a level 4 accreditation, and I think that would be fantastic. So here's a list of contributors that I have talked to, interviewed, who have helped me basically put this entire project together, and I'm so grateful to have each and every one of them. Thank you so much. There's also sponsors like Parking, Sustainability, and Transportation, which is where I work under, the Student Government Association, Tremendous Honors College, and CARTA. And I would like to also mention that before I graduated from FIU, I actually was able to secure an SGA Arboretum resolution, which means that we really do have student backing on this project. Like, this Arboretum resolution basically says that the students are in full support of this Arboretum, and it'll potentially, serve as a way to, show administration that this is something that we want, and this is something that we're going to make happen, So I'm really happy about this, and we'll be working with SGA a lot throughout this project. So that concludes my presentation. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask. You can drop it on the chat box. You could unmute yourself and ask me. I'm more than willing to answer anything that anyone has. So thank you so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed this presentation and this talk.
If I may.
Yes.
First of all, I want to say thank you for the presentation. It was really eye-opening, honestly. Like, I'm really glad that what we've been learning. I'm taking Introduction to Botany with Professor Koza, and it's really cool to see like the things that we're learning being put into application and like on our university. And I was like really surprised when you're going over costs, and like it was like 125K, and I was like, wow, I was like, that's pretty good. And I thought you were just talking about MMC, and then when you said both campuses, I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's something that we were planning. But it really just depends on how, because this project will ultimately be under the Office of University Sustainability, and it just depends on how they want to organize and structure the maintenance of it. So it's really up to them, but that's what we were talking about as of now. Yeah.
Also, I wanted to ask, because I noticed when you went over, I think it said there were like 12 different exhibits based on like the parts of campus, so like the medical part and all that stuff. I wanted to ask because I didn't see I forgot the name of the building because I'm kind of new to FIU. I haven't been on campus all that much because of COVID. But I know there's like a business department or business building for business students. I didn't see one for that. Are you guys planning to do that? Because I'm a business student. I'm an accounting major. So I just wanted to ask.
Oh yeah. So the one that we're doing for that one is actually food and crop. I think I want to change the name to be economic, because I feel like economic is more related to business. But yeah, that would be the exhibit that we would potentially have for the business complex. But if you are looking more into like specific business, like you can definitely talk to John Koza, because so that's another thing that I forgot to mention in this presentation. We have a literal like student list of like tree suggestions, exhibit suggestions, like everything that students would like to see from this exhibit. So if you would like to contribute to that, please let John Koza know so he could add it on the actual list, and we will consider it for the actual arboretum once we start, you know, making it and whatnot. So yeah, like, and a lot of, actually, like, everything that you see here was pretty much like student made. So Olivia, who worked with me in the Office of University Sustainability, she's the one who did all these graphics and design. She's incredibly talented. The tree suggestions we actually got from students as well as professors, actually. So everything that you see here is from students and faculty from FIU. So this is for the community, by the community, you know, and if you would like to contribute, you're more than welcome to.
So if I can just say something, I think I caught a vibration from you, Angel, and that first of all, the students in tropical botany a couple years ago, as one of their assignments, proposed 20 new candidate exhibits and populated them with suggested trees, since had several other classes adding trees to those. And then we've also added a few others. For example, no one had suggested anything on BBC. Now we've got 8 or 9 suggested exhibits, some from students. And there happens to now be a new business and entrepreneurship candidate exhibit on the list. And in fact, if you're in Intro Botany Lab, you can suggest trees for that. That'll be an assignment this semester, but you can suggest trees anyway. You don't have to be in a course. That's the beauty of it. This belongs to everybody. This is the people's garden.
Exactly.
And I wanted to ask. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I've asked too many questions. You go ahead.
No, you can finish up. I'll go after.
I was just gonna ask if there was gonna be, because you guys were saying like it was gonna introduce jobs for students on campus, which I think is an amazing, like that is like a really good seller, because you know everything in the world's run by money. So I think that's a great seller for like the present stuff. I just wanted to ask, like, if you guys were thinking about like expanding more jobs, because like since I was an accounting major, I was thinking like, man, I really want to be a part of that. And I was thinking like, what could I do with my major to be a part of that? And I was like, oh, maybe you guys would need like an accountant to like write down all the costs and stuff. So I wanted to ask if you guys are thinking about expanding towards that.
Honestly, I'm not quite sure, but if you do work under the Office of University Sustainability, you could potentially do that. So the reason why I say that, because honestly, like interns under Office of University Sustainability don't have like one set job. You feel me? So when I was an intern, and I still am an intern, like technically, we literally like we just did what was needed to be done in the moment, you know? So I literally tabled, I maintained the nature preserve, I worked on this project. I've done so many things under that internship, and it's really opened my eyes to a lot of incredible work in the sustainability community at FIU, and as well as like budgeting and stuff. So that let me like show you this garden tree budget, like these budgets, I did come up with it myself. I literally called like nurseries, and I got all these numbers that you see here, and as well as like for the benches, pathways, and everything. So you do like a little bit of everything if you were to work as an intern in the Office of University Sustainability. It is so diverse. Like we literally have people from every single major in FIU, and that's the beautiful part of it. You know, you could have a job under the Office of University Sustainability and do what you love, you know. And if you wanted to like budgeting and you know, grant work and stuff like that, you can do it, you know. It's a very, very flexible job. So definitely consider it. Like I really do love the office. And if you are considering doing more sustainable work, and also that ties into your major, I would definitely consider joining the team. And if you want to join the team, for anyone interested in joining the Office of University Sustainability, you go to gogreen.fiu.edu and you apply either as a volunteer, you could be a VIP, or you can be an official intern. And that could potentially result in payment, but you would have to talk to Connie, which is the head of Office of University Sustainability. But yeah, thank you for those questions. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for the presentation.
I wanted to thank. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. So I just had a question in regards to the food plants that you guys have. I think everything's a really great idea. I was just wondering, so as the different food plants grow and ripen, what are your plans to do with them? Are you just going to have someone like collect them and pick them up and like dispose of them, or are you going to try to like use them to, I don't know, maybe like donations and things of that sort for maybe like the homeless?
So that's actually one of the reasons why I really wanted a food and crop exhibit. So there's a food pantry at FIU, and I know that there's a lot of students on campus who go hungry every day. And potentially what I would like to do is collaborate with the FIU food pantry to try to see if we could set up a kind of partnership with them where they could collect the food that these trees potentially will yield and give it to the students who are in need. I have been thinking about that, and honestly, like a lot of the stuff in the food pantry are not, they are not fresh. They are canned food and packaged food, which you take what you can get, right? But it is definitely a lot healthier and just better and more sustainable to get actual food from directly from trees and whatnot. So potentially, yes, I would like to donate these to the food pantry. Thank you for that question. It's actually something that I've been thinking about for a long time.
That's awesome. Thank you for the answer.
No problem.
Good afternoon. First of all, I wanted to thank you for the talk. I cannot wait for these projects to come to fruition. I am so very excited.
Me too.
I just wanted to ask you a question. Now, would arboretums, do you have any idea if they would prevent bird strikes? Because I was walking by the campus earlier. There were tens of birds that just were strewn across.
So sorry, can you repeat the question? Because I couldn't hear you really well. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Now, would arboretums, would they help against bird strikes? Because I saw a lot of bird strikes on campus. It just broke my heart seeing tens of birds dead.
Yes. So arboretums, I haven't really read any research on that. I know that a lot of the reasons why those happen is because of buildings, and the thing is that birds kind of like, thinking that, the glass is kind of like, how do you say it, like see-through. They think they can go through it. They kind of just like knock into it and just, fall and die. The buildings are kind of what's attracting that. Would trees prevent that? Potentially, maybe it could provide habitats, but I'm not quite sure. It could like prevent like birds from, going into those like glass transparent buildings, because unfortunately, man-made things like do interfere with nature, and having something like that is potentially dangerous for like really a lot of animals on campus. But what it could do is provide habitats for them, and that's something that would help, I think, in attracting birds and just having them have a safe space. But in preventing those deaths, I haven't read research on that, and I'm not quite sure it would, unfortunately. The fact that we have buildings, it's very, there's not much we can do unless maybe you were to prevent it from being transparent or see-through or whatnot.
Sounds like a student research opportunity to me as the Arboretum starts growing.
Honestly, yeah, you could definitely do research on that. You could really do research on anything. So if you would like to do research, just you can reach out to the office again, like to FIU Office of University Sustainability, and there's a ton of grants that you could apply for it. So yeah.
So I got a question. So when can we hope to start breaking ground, so to speak, right?
I'm like praying that this semester is it, you know, because to tell you the truth, I've been working on this project for 4 years. And I mean, that's why it's so elaborate and developed and whatnot, but it's a lengthy one because of, you know, the bureaucracy that's tied to it. There's a lot of things that you have to consider, like administration you have to talk to. So that's why it's been taking so long. But honestly, like, I'm kind of glad that it's taken like a considerable long time, because the more time passes, the more refined the project gets, you know. But I also like, I want to start already, you know. I really hope that this semester is it, and I have a feeling that it might be. So I really do expect to be working on actually like detailing the exhibits and well, I mean, we already have tree species lists for some of the exhibits. We just really need to like collaborate with CARTA and our other architects to really like design the exhibits. So that's going to be like another project. But I really do hope to get the approval by this semester. I really do.
So it's been pretty well communicated, and and the receptivity's been positive. You're just kind of waiting for to take it to the president's level.
yeah, that's really what I'm waiting for. And once that's done, like, it's all like all open from there, you know. I'm just waiting for the green light from the president. But until then, you know, like we're still doing work, we're still working towards this goal, and we're not going to stop until he says yes.
I can testify that Dean Heighthouse is very excited about it. And that Tom Hartley was also very excited. He's the whatever, I don't remember those titles. He's the president of parking or something like that.
Yes. They were definitely excited. The vice presidents, I've talked to 2 vice presidents, and they were both extremely excited about it. And the next step is to talk to the president, and I'm almost sure that he won't be able to say no.
John, can I say something? John?
Yes.
Is still there Baralotto there? Still Baralotto there? Baralotto? Chris, are you still there? Or he left? He be a good person somehow, you know, as the leader in many aspects of the botanist initiative in FIU, to give us some insights about, you know, how the administrators feel about it. But I think Chris Baralotto already left. He was at the beginning. I don't think he's with us anymore. Anyway, that's what I was thinking. Maybe I want to hear from Chris some insights about where we're heading with this, which I think is a great idea. Sorry, that's what I say.
No, Javier, I'm still here. Sorry, guys. I mean,
you were quiet because you didn't expect this bomb, no? Sorry, I pass the ball to you now.
Gracias, amigo. So yeah, great talk, Amelia. I think it's a wonderful initiative. Of course, we support it completely. You know, as for the administration, I think that they, of course, will support this as well. Whether we get financial support in addition is another thing. And I think that you've laid out a very nice business plan wherein you can garner the financial support, which will help allay some of these costs, which can be substantial both for installation and then maintenance, as you've outlined. But nevertheless, I think you'll get full support, especially in light of some of the other issues in terms of making the campus a little bit more green that are taking place right now. It's a good time to leverage this opportunity to get this in place. And so I commend all the great work you've done, and any help you need, we're here to help you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to follow up with a few words what Chris said right now. I think this blends nicely what's happening in FIU with botany. We're having now in Campon a whole new development going over there. In the last 4 or 5 years, we also had in Fairchild, I think, a great initiative by which we engage students in freshmen to come to Fairchild and to appreciate botany and to what we call alleviate plant blindness. So I think all sort of come very nicely. What I can see is like a very comprehensive way to, for us, particularly in Miami, where we can grow plants the whole year, and we have such a diverse community from many countries, the Caribbean and Latin America. So great. And it would be nice, I see again, to see if we can somehow, all of this being coordinated with what I think are right now the two biggest events we have in the with botany, which is the Campon being developed. This area also is land which is owned by FIU.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we're doing, I think at least very limited in with Fairchild and regarding engaging students with botany as freshmen. So that's all I can say. So good talk and congratulations. Great initiative.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to mention that I worked with Dr. Baralotto on a research project like around 2 years ago for the tropical conservation internship, and it was definitely a beautiful experience I had. And it was also a way that I was also inspired to make the Arboretum as well. So
I wanted to say that, like, little last thoughts that I was thinking it over, like, it really is such a great idea. I don't know how President Rosenberg can even, no is not an option, you know. It's either yes, maybe look at the cost, but like there's no to this, because like Florida International University, you know, that just spreads unity, and this project's unity itself, like there's plants all over the world. That is like the main unifying thing, you know, like this planet, and there's just so many advantages and good things to come from this project that I don't think any negative can ever foreshadow. Like, this is just too positive. I don't.
You know, actually, I've talked to Rosenberg, and he really does like the grass in the campus. He loves the grass in the campus, so I'm not quite sure. Like,
there could be grass and trees. And
there'll be plenty of grass.
Diversity is good.
Yeah, I just think that he might be a little bit hesitant because of the new palms introduced in campus, you know, and he's kind of thinking in his head like, oh, like, how are we going to fit all these trees when there's palms? And, you know, but there's definitely a way. I promise you there's always a way. And in terms of like the costs and whatnot and the impact in the university, I don't think the impact is even measurable, honestly. I think it's priceless what we're gonna get with this Arboretum, and I think that in terms of financing it, I have it all outlined, and I have a really, really good feeling that we'll get quite a few grants.
John, can I make a comment about what Amelia said right now? John, or...
Of course, Javier, you're the boss.
Yeah,
my goodness.
I want to follow what Amelia said right now. I don't think it's about cost in many aspects. Many of these plants, you can buy them. They're great. It's mostly about having the contact to give you the plants. And I can use so many plants I give you as an example, you cannot buy them. That's why I think it's important you network with Fairchild, with Montgomery, with around in campus that have these plants you cannot buy. I mean, you have all the plants you want to have in campus, you cannot buy them. They're not for sale. And can guarantee for sure this in John. You need to have the
very true.
So it's not so much about thinking about the money to buy the plants. It's about having the interest, the time, and the love to do this.
Exactly.
The way Fairchild Garden was done, it was not by plants they bought. Not at all. Montgomery, they never bought any of these plants. They came in exploring. They came by the network. So I think you're right. The budget is very important, but you can get a lot done if you have the contacts, the love, the interest, and so on. That's my opinion. Anyway.
It's very true. It's very true. And I think, like, you know, when you're not a plant person and you don't realize what goes on behind that, you don't realize that a lot of this is done through teamwork. A lot of this is done through, like having connections, like forming relationships. The money, yes, like obviously there's going to be some costs, but at the end of the day, like, you know, the relationships you build and the relationships you form are a lot more valuable, and it will like that's really like the meat of the project, like you said.
That's what I think is, at least in town, my opinion is, you need to solidify the links with Fairchild and Montgomery to start. That's what I think. And you have their good colleagues. You have their Chad, you have their Patrick, you have their Brett. These are the guys. They just came from Thailand with a lot of plants that you cannot buy them. But they just went to Haiti to get some plants from Haiti, which are unique. That's what my opinion again is. And we have also with us Alan Frank. Alan, sorry, not to try to drop this on you, who's being hired to do this in many aspects. I mean, no. So this is what I think is being very important. My opinion is put the plants in the nursery, as many as you can. Once in the nursery, we find a way to move them to the main campus.
Agreed.
In many aspects, not much about planning, but about opportunities. You can plan a lot, but if you have the plants, find a plant interesting, grab it. Grab the plant. That's it. Planning can be a problem many times.
Very true. Any other questions or last minute comments, concerns?
I can keep on going. It's just if I keep on going, we're not leaving anytime soon. If you guys are free till 4 o'clock where I have botany class, sure. But
I don't really have any questions, but I wanted just to thank you for everything. I actually kind of got emotional. This is really exciting. I hope like this whole project goes through. Like I'm really excited to see campus full of life, and like this is really good. So yeah, if there's anything that we can do to help you get that approval, I'll start emailing everyone.
Well, the SGA resolution was already made, so that's a really, really big step in the right direction. And because that's basically like a petition right there. That's basically like a petition, like, and students want this, you know. So
and if Rosenberg asks for one more, I'll just sign right on the paper, even though it's printed out.
So John, you want to hear advice to do next? Go to Fairchild and see there the nursery, what they have in there. This is for me, the next obvious step. And they will be delighted, I know that, to help. Alan, I think what I say is right. No, Alan, you know, Chad, you know, Brett, go to Fairchild, what having Fairchild. You can have tomorrow pretty much. And then we make Alan to work in the nursery to keep these plants alive. It is, maybe I'm too much ground, you know. This is my recommendation.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, we have all the resources. We have an amazing community of botanists and horticulturists and enthusiasts, both on campus and at Kampong and Fairchild and Montgomery, just like you said, Javier.
So the main budget now is to basically have money to rent a truck that moves money from Fairchild to FIU. That's the main budget you need to have right now. Nothing else. And pots that's my perspective as an outsider in many aspects, no? And pots in FIU where you can transplant the plants and maintain the plants.
It's doable, that's for sure. That's the whole point. And Amelia made that very clear. The whole thing is completely doable. So all there is to do is to do it.
But just wanted to thank everyone for coming today to the talk. Really appreciate your time and presence. And I look forward to working with y'all and trying to make this come to light. So yes.
Okay, well, thank you, Amelia. Wow. I mean, what a beautiful talk. And I think an inspiration to all of us to do things right here locally that can make a huge difference in our lives and thus also be a model for others.
Exactly. That's
by the way, Chad from Fairchild is listening to this talk. So now, so you can follow up with him right away. It's in the,
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, chat.
We'll
Say
be
right,
happy
no,
to contribute, yeah.
that's it. So hire a truck. That's it. Rent a truck.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, everybody. If you need to learn more about the plant talks, you can always check out our website. Amelia, if you're okay with us providing your contact information to everyone, just email it to me and we'll be sure to send that information out.
Definitely.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
And thank you, Candace and Alan and Javier for making this happen and for everyone else for coming. Wow.
We have in 2 weeks our next plant talk that actually it links to with Fairchild about the work they're doing in there in conservation. So it's good actually. That's good thing about this Zoom environment has some that allow for our main partners and colleagues to have this forum at least once every 2 weeks to talk about what's happening with plants in town. Anything else to say, Alan? And help you. Thank you again very much at the beginning to help with to share today's presentation.
No problem. Glad to do it.
So we'll see in 2 weeks.
All right. Sounds good.
Try to go to Fairchild. Okay. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.